the best Eagles basketball coverage. This is Creature Report.
All right, what's up, Eagles fans? You got Russell Kelly here on the mic, joined here with Elliott Cressy over the phone. How you doing, Elliott?
Just peachy.
All right, peachy's good. But anyways, we're here after having recorded like a 20-30 minute podcast breaking down the Bellarmine loss the other day, and kind of wrapping up the season, only for a couple hours later for some news to drop that FGCU has parted ways with head coach Michael Fly after 4 years. So, the news comes across, I'm sitting in my car driving somewhere, and we're getting all this news and like, oh, well, this is really good timing. Anyway, but we want to kind of give our initial reactions, what it means going forward, just looking back on his 4-year tenure, wrapping things up that way. So, Elliott, what are your initial thoughts? What are your feelings? What first hit you? What do you feel like now? What's going on?
Yeah, so I know you and I have always talked about, what was it going to take for Coach Fly to get fired or, removed? What would it take? And this year, this success from this year, at least in our opinion, is my opinion, it was shocking just because I thought we made significant progress from the last season, going 21 wins, which is the first time we've had 20 plus in the last, I think, 4 years. I know we had an early exit, but it was still shocking nonetheless. Like you said, you were driving somewhere, I was driving somewhere. My buddy, who was actually alumni from Liberty, texted me right when the news dropped. He saw it on Twitter. And I was like, say what? And I opened up, and there it is, all the news. And from there's a lot of questions to be had. I'm sure which will unravel in the next month / off season. So, apparently Ken Kavanaugh, the program thinks it's the right move to do this. We will see. Hopefully there's a plan in place. Right now I'm just a little shell-shocked because I thought the momentum was heading in the right direction. What about you?
Yeah, I think initial immediate reaction is surprise because of what you said with just the improvement. And I know that word improvement, optimism, stuff like that is such a buzzword around a select few, fan base members. And it's just a matter of, what their opinion on improvement means. And we talked about in the pod that will never be released at this point, what improvement means. And we came to the consensus improvement is day to day, season to season. And I think a lot of people are holding it's not an improvement because it's not as good as it was before he was here. And to me, yes, you're right, but like it is improvement, like embedded within that. And, so yeah, my initial reaction was surprise. Improvement equals optimism to me as well. It's, if there is improvement, then I'm optimistic, even if there is questions, right? So it's, if you don't see improvement between his second season was 10-22, last year was 10-8. This past year that just ended, 21-11. If you don't see improvement in that, like, I don't know if I can talk basketball with you. Like, I feel like at that point you're kind of choosing to not see it. Now, if you're hung up on the overall record and the record in the A-Sun during his 4 years, then I think that's kind of short-sighted as well. Looking at the record as a whole is zero context. If it was reversed and his first season at the helm was 21 wins, and then he won 10 in a COVID season, and then he went 10-22, then it would be absolutely like, it's in the wrong direction, right? But this was the opposite of that. He took over, it was bad, and it got steadily better, win-wise. So it's just looking at the overall record, it doesn't say a lot.
Yeah, and the overall record thing, 3 more wins. If say we had won out at the end of the season, he would have been 500 all time. and I think a little bit better than 500 in conference play. I think he still was better than 500 in conference play, but yeah, I think there were some things. It's kind of like a perfect storm of issues that occurred during this last 4-year stretch. I think when Fly came in, the plan at FGCU, at least the way I see it, was to, hey, let's build from the ground up. I want to be here for the long tenure. I want to build this program into a perennial mid-major contender that's going to take time. And I think that was executed too early, in my opinion, because FGCU has always relied on the success of other transfers from high major programs or JUCO programs to come in and bolster this offense, minus the whole 2013 run, which was a bunch of guys that were there and kind of shocked everyone. But I think that the transfers that come in, that get you wins, builds the hype, builds recruiting, brings those recruits in, and that's how you build a program. Instead, I feel like we did it the other way where, hey, let's just go from the ground up, bring a couple guys. And that's what you saw in this last year, kind of a change. It's like, oh crap, I need to get transfers to win. Otherwise, I'm definitely going to be out of a job. And even when doing that and even when winning, the staff was still criticized. He was still criticized. So I think it's just, not to mention COVID, before that kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It wasn't a full season. It was closer to a half season, but that's still in everyone's mind. It was a waste of a year. And I agree. It was a waste of most people's years.
Yeah, totally.
I think there's just a lot of internal mistakes that were made that also coupled with external mistakes, or not mistakes, but issues, led to, I guess, this choice. And even in the press release from the school and from Greg Hardwig, it was stated that Ken Kavanaugh, hated to make this decision because he had so much trust and faith and a good relationship with Coach Fly. So I think it's a tough situation every way you look at it.
Definitely. And I don't mean, who knows how true quotes are, right? I don't know. Maybe they don't like each other. Maybe they do like each other, but that is what the school released. But no, I definitely agree. I think that I'm not going to argue that they shouldn't have done the ground up kind of approach that you're talking about. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it, not go half and half, right? And the first year he was head coach was, okay, let's get Cheatham here. Baxter's coming back, and let's get a couple transfers, Cedric Casimir, and then we got a couple freshmen, but only 2, not that many freshmen, because Dooley wasn't recruiting freshmen like that, at least. And yeah, we'll see how we do. They lose Zach Johnson. The new guys don't really fit because they're trying to get Caleb Cato and Zach Scott minutes and for other reasons. And then a bunch of people transfer. Rayshawn Scott's gone. Some of the Dooley leftovers never worked out. Carlisle, Ricky Doyle, Michael Gilmore, Brady Ernst. None of those guys worked out in that year, or there was a bunch of injuries. Brian Thomas. Cheatham and Baxter of those are the ones who went on to have an eventual successful year. But then year 2 is when they're like, all right, let's fully ground up. You got Cato and Scott were sophomores, and then it was 3 freshmen at the time came in. So it was like they're building up, but it's almost like that's where it went wrong too, because he knew based on the fan reaction and used to winning and all that kind of stuff that, okay, we can't fully invest in the freshmen at this point, but we need to take a bigger step toward that. So he brings in transfers. But what kind of transfers did he bring in? He brought in JUCO transfers, guys who were supposed to lead the team from a maturity standpoint, right? Because they're juniors and seniors and all that. But, they're guys who had never played D1 ball. And people didn't like seeing that either. That was the 10-22 season. So next year comes around, kind of same deal. Those guys who were juniors were seniors. Caleb Cato is now a junior, but there's just not a lot of those young guys who got development time because people demanded a winner. They wanted to see wins, and Fly's like, I imagine this is not a quote or anything, but if I play these freshmen, I'm definitely not going to win. It would help my future probably, but right now people want to see wins. I don't know if there was outside pressure, but it just kind of seemed like no philosophy was truly bought in, because like you said, maybe it's too early to go ground up. People were not ready for a ground up scenario like that. They wanted to see wins and transfers no matter how they got those wins. So when you double dip like that, well, let me get some transfers, or let me get some of this, some of that, whatever. It's like you're not really ever truly buying into your plan. I don't know if that's totally the case, but that's a little bit of the vibe that I got by the end of things. And to wrap that part up, exactly what you're saying though is his philosophy had to change by the end, because he was going to get fired, like for sure. And he wins one more game, and I guarantee he has a job. If we beat Liberty, it doesn't matter if we if we beat Bellarmine on this past Thursday. And it wouldn't have mattered if we lost to Liberty yesterday, Saturday, the 5th or whatever date that is, 7th. I don't know, whatever. It wouldn't have mattered if we had won or lost, because we won 2 games or whatever. And he'd still have a job. So it's just so fickle. There's such small differences that happen. Mind you, the team that knocked us out of the tournament that in theory got Michael Fly fired is now in the ASUN finals. So like, what does that say? Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and there's a lot that, hindsight, that's why it's kind of hard. We report on things in the moment, but you really don't know what happens until it happens, So now you look at the whole 4 years that he was here, and you can see where things went wrong specifically. You can see where things could have been better. You can see where things were good, and it's just a full picture now.
Yeah, and touching on one of the external issues over the years, which is a con of the success we've had. When we won in 2013, that awakened and burst onto the scene at FGCU and the ASUN, but double side to that is your fans are now expecting success like that every year. And while that's a great thing to have, and it's a great thing to have passionate fans that hold you to that standard, is it realistic? And it's probably not, because I'm not saying that the 2013 season was a fluke, but we definitely caught a lot of people by surprise. There was talent there, no doubt. But to do that year in and year out with the little history of a D1 program we have is very tough. So then you have fans and donors that are expecting this level of success every year. And when you have 3 years that are just down, it's like, oh, what are we doing, fans of this? I thought we were at this level. And, then money gets involved and things get weird and the direction of the program gets questioned. So there's that conflict. There's also the fact that when we won, the ASUN became not a destination conference, but it definitely grew in, it was more enticing. You had programs come in, you had existing programs that put FGCU as the target to beat, that we were the new top dogs. They wanted to beat them. They got hungrier. They got more athletes that were coming from, or didn't get recruited as highly, that came to this conference to try to win. And now you look at the teams we've added. We've added Liberty, Jacksonville State, next year with Austin P. I know a couple of those, Liberty and Jacksonville State, will be leaving after the following season, but you're looking at the quality of teams coming in to the ASUN, and now you're like, well, the ASUN's not really bottom of the barrel conference anymore. It's definitely not a high major, but it's getting there. So I think you couple all that with the mistakes of a youthful program, in my opinion, and then another external of COVID, and it's just like a perfect storm for something's got to change.
Yeah, and with this, like, I am surprised. I don't know if I'm shocked, but I'm definitely like capital S surprised, as I would say. And because I mean, you do like put yourself in Kavanaugh's shoes, and like attendance is like halved at this point. Now, is that directly, literally Michael Fly the man's fault? Like, I don't think so. Um, it correlates though, which is the problem, which is the death sentence, I guess you could say. And so that I don't know if Fly's firing is a scapegoat situation. But I mean, among other things, obviously, but there's just a lot going on, and we mentioned before in the pod that will never be released, like kind of reasons for optimism is not just the wins. It was kind of like the big topic is, oh well, they're losing like nearly 70% of their scoring or something, and that is a big deal. You lose a guy like Tavian Denmartin and Kevin Samuel, among others, Cato as well. And how do you fill that? But like, how many guys, like young guys, or not even younger, but just like guys who haven't had the opportunity yet, look like they could have developed? Rivers and Franco Miller will be entering their senior seasons. Should they, have stayed? And it was kind of like, okay, let's see them come into their own. But younger guys like Zach Anderson, with a full year to develop his offense and his confidence, with nobody in front of him, how's that going to look? Andre Weir, looked awesome at times as a redshirt freshman, and his development I was super excited about. Austin Ritchie likely would have come back, had a much bigger role on the court, and just many other guys. Rolone, how does he look with his first full and healthy offseason to develop that shot and get into shape and just the way things should be played? But it's like now we're in a position where everything that was optimistic as far as players and stuff like that is like, now it's all unknown. I mean, some of it was unknown before, but you had an idea. Now it's like, do they stay? Do they want to stay? If they stay, is the new coach, like, is his style going to mesh well with them? Is that guy / those players going to buy into each other? Like, there's so much to figure out now. And, that makes it kind of exciting when you remove yourself from the, surprise that we're talking about. But yeah, it's just a lot more unknowns now than before, because you knew if Fly was there's 4+ open spots, and you knew at least a couple of those were going to be good, proven transfers again. So it's not like, oh, all our scoring's gone, what do we do? It's like something's going to fill that void,
Yeah, no, and this was a damn good year. Like, there was rough patches for sure, but you go through every win and loss, and overall this was a great year. There was, especially to end the season, I mean, not only did we have the best start in D1 era for our program, but like the last 10 games, we won 9 out of 10, 10 being the one we lost to Bellarmine, who's been the thorn in our side. And credit to Bellarmine. They're a great team that's well coached, well disciplined. I mean, they're really good. And you look at them now, they're in the ASUN final. So yeah, I agree, man. It's shocking. You don't know, what's going to become of the players, the remainder of the roster, unless there's a really good plan in place. And that's where we're trusting, I guess, the direction of the program. Maybe there is a plan in place that there's already buy-in, and, we don't know yet. We'll know in the next month. But usually when you bring a new coach in, you lose players, and it's tough for a year or two. Now, if you bring in a stud that meshes well, and that's what we just talked about with the plan in place, then maybe it works out, but we'll see.
Right. And this is looking way far ahead, and we will talk about this plenty as the offseason goes on. But look at what JU has been able to do in one season. Like, they were, Tony Jacek was their coach for a while, just never got over the hump, always kind of, for the last few seasons, bottom of the conference. And then Mincy is their coach right now, and pretty much an instantaneous turnaround to where they're potentially going to the NCAA tournament if they can knock off Bellarmine. So it can be quick, but again, I want to caution immediately any fans listening to this to expect that. Like, that is not the norm. And just because you like FGCU and we want them to do well does not mean that's the expectation. Like, or else you're just going to be mad at whoever the next coach is immediately. And then 3-4 years go by, and thank God we have a new coach coming in because you got mad too quick. But anyway, I mean, this is of course way too early to start talking about this, but it's not going to stop us. But let's speculate anyway, real quick, when we go through the roster of the guys currently set to join. Like, who do we think they might transfer? Do we think it's more likely they stay? There's only 9 of them, so it's not going to go too quick, or not going to take too long. But like Luis Rolón, he'll be entering his junior season. He's already shown he can pass the ball really well. He's a pass first point guard. 2 years of, playing left. So, I mean, it's kind of up in the air, in my opinion, whether he stays or goes. Do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think everyone's 50-50. There's so many factors that go into what makes a player want to move or stay. Obviously they come for a variety of reasons. Usually it's the coach, and 2, usually it's family and location. So it's like, do these guys really want to uproot again, go somewhere else with the faith of another head coach, unless it's guaranteed playing time, and try to mesh into that whole system and take a whole nother year to do that? Or are they comfortable here in the current leadership and whoever's coming in? There's so many variables. I don't know what would prompt anyone to stay or leave. It's location, it's family, it's comfortability, it's
people, relationships, all of that.
Yeah. Veteranship. You've been with this program X amount of years now. You want to, and no, it happens because look at Tavian Dunmartin. He finished his career and wanted to come over here to win, and was persuaded to, and did a great job. So it's a coin flip, but I don't know these guys' personal lives and thoughts right now. I'm sure they're all kind of processing it the same way.
Oh, for sure.
My bigger concerns would be like you mentioned, the young guys that we have that are full of potential, that maybe came here because of Fly and the current staff that recruited them. I'm talking about Andre Weir. I'm talking about who else? Like Zach Anderson, still young and improving.
Zach Anderson, Luis Rolón, and Victor Rosa are all in the same grade.
Yeah, and I think someone like I'm hoping Cyrus Largy stays, finishes his career here as the senior leader. But it's kind of a coin flip, man, with everyone.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, and especially I think the location and the family thing does matter. But that point with Tavian is a really good example. That really it's any of those super experienced transfers, like 1-year transfers, is where that point is valid. Like even Kevin Samuel, his whole career in TCU, and then let me do that 1 year down in Florida. And when we talked to him in the off season, it feels like I'm back in Barbuda because of the climate in Florida. It was part of that was to be closer to home. It was so family could come to a couple games a year or something like that, and it wasn't double the distance of travel and other things like that. Luis Rolón and Victor Rosa are both from Florida or from Puerto Rico, but they're both from their high schools were in Florida. Dakota Rivers went to school in the Orlando area. Zach Anderson, same thing, Apopka. So there are guys who are Florida based. Do they want to spend that last year or two or whatever they get elsewhere, or do they want to stick it out here? It's really hard to say. I think for me, as far as specific players, I agree. Weir is who one of the ones I'm most curious about, and also Largy, because does he owe anything to the program that made him walk on to D1 scholarship player? No, he doesn't owe anything. He earned that. So and it's not, would he owe something to the coaching staff that believed in him? Maybe there's an argument for that, but that coaching staff's not there anymore now. So is he like, listen, I played 3 years, not sure how COVID years work. Maybe he has 2 more years, or maybe just the 1. I don't know. Do I want to go get my bearings somewhere else where I think I can contribute, or do I think I can lead this team? And I think that a lot of that's going to come down to just who's hired. And that's kind of another thing that's impossible to speculate, because there are 350 D1 programs out there with, they each have 3+ assistant coaches. So it's like, where do you even start? But for me, the names that come to mind are the ones that have been mentioned, the ones we're familiar with here. Marty Richter was an assistant coach on Andy Enfield's staff, who was also an assistant on Dooley's staff along with Fly after Dooley was hired. Then, went over to coach the upstart program at FSW, a JUCO school. And, then when he's been an assistant at, what school is that? Drake. Yeah. Bulldogs, I want to say. But yeah, an assistant at Drake for a few years. And so it's like he's got that pedigree, he's got the familiarity. I don't know how like the parting was like, because it was my, I was a student at the time, or else just graduating, so I don't have like the most true knowledge or source information from back then. But it was my understanding back then that he was the next in line guy when Dooley left, but Dooley kept winning and kept not getting the job opportunity elsewhere that he wanted. So he was staying. You can't fire a guy for doing as well as Dooley was doing, right? And he didn't want to be fired. He just wanted to coach elsewhere. So it's like, Marty Richter's time came up and he's like, I'm not waiting around. And, he went and got a job elsewhere. And so, yeah, I don't know if that leaves sour tastes in people's mouths or, about loyalty or whatever. That's not really even for me to say. But, I don't know if things are good between them, if that's an option, or if they want to look somewhere else. If we're talking totally unfamiliar, to the program, it's like I would look at not the blue blood programs like, a Duke or Kentucky or, North Carolina, because those assistants for the most part already have like jobs lined up. Like they want to either coach where they're at as a head coach or go to another high major Power 5. What I would look at are teams like, say, Illinois, who, they're in a Power 5 conference, but they're not usually great until the past few years. And so that coaching staff that came on board developed that program. Now they have second, third assistants who, aren't in line for like the big jobs because they're not there all the time. Those type of schools, Loyola Chicago, who has been relevant for a few years now. Their coaches, assistant coaches, are going to be plucked. So just those kind of schools, I guess, is where I'd expect things to be looked at.
Yeah, and there's obviously some speculation lists circling the interwebs from fans and people alike, so we'll have to do a deep dive into some of those candidates, and I'm sure Ken Kavanaugh's already got a hot list of people, probably already texting Colin and asking for a conversation. So, it'll be interesting to see. I want to backtrack real quick to what you said about the coaching staff and kind of them all leaving. But isn't it sometimes like the head coach may get fired, but the assistant coaches stay on for a year or two until the new coach can get his bearings and get who he wants in?
I think that's kind of rare, actually. We saw that though, so maybe I'm wrong, because Richter and Fly, I don't know if anyone else, both stayed after Enfield left. And yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, my one thought was, well, maybe there's a sort of unspoken agreement in place where, even though Fly gets removed, perhaps there's a relationship with Coach Sutton or Coach Furr or Coach Bailey with some of the existing players, like, hey, you stick around, these guys are going to be here still to coach you through this while we adjust to the new head coach.
Yeah, that's something that happened last time with, like, Zach Johnson got the opportunity to play with Miami, but the only reason that wasn't for sure at the time was because he had a good relationship with Coach Fly. And the other guys who stayed during that transition year that, wasn't very good, but regardless, Michael Gilmore, Carlisle, other guys like that who were already there, stayed because it was Fly who was there, not, it's hard to say. But at the same time, when Enfield left and Dooley came on, most of all the big time players stayed for that, at least that first year. So I don't know, maybe they didn't have cachet elsewhere. Maybe they didn't want to leave. I know Comer had an opportunity to transfer, and didn't. So, I don't know.
Yep. To all be disclosed in the future.
Yep. Once things are all figured out, I me being a Bears fan, like I've seen way too many coaching searches, but at the same time, there is, excitement that is around it too, because the unknown. I'm not going to say anyone's right or wrong about their little opinions online. That includes us. That includes other people. But like, I think something like this can be another chance to sort of be on the same page with people. Like there's no opinions out there right now because, well, not about anything that's currently happening because it already happened, right? People who didn't like Fly, he's not here anymore. People who did like Fly or thought there could be some improvement with Fly, doesn't matter. He's not here anymore. It's a reset for a lot of things, and maybe that's what donors wanted. Maybe that's what Kavanaugh wanted because donors wanted that. There's so much reasons behind all of this, but like I said, at the end of the day, bottom line, it's a new day, and we'll go from there and see who coaches.
Well, it was interesting because Coach Fly still had another year left in his contract, although that year was not like to be paid out or something like that from what I remember reading. So it's like by cutting it now, there's no negative harm to FGCU other than the search for a new coach. So there must have been some sort of contingency or milestone that had to be met this year. And
yeah, I'm thinking it was a ASUN finals appearance. That might have been it.
Correct, or like a hard fought semifinals loss or something of the nature, like you said earlier.
Yeah, and one thing about that extra year though, that I did want to mention is it's really rare for a coach to coach on a lame duck contract, meaning with 1 year remaining, because that hurts recruiting. Guys don't want to come to your school if they think you're going to leave after 1 year, unless of course they only have 1 year of eligibility. But in general, that extra year could have just been here's this stupid year, so you can try to win this year. That happens in sports quite a bit. Even the NFL, it's rare to be coaching on your last year of your contract. But the last thing, and this is kind of out of order just because I forgot to mention it, and I don't know if this is still going to be true, but I was always under this is another reason to be optimistic that I had before. Look at a guy like Tavion Dunn-Martin who came to the school, and everybody knows how good he was and what he, how big he was for the team this year. It was awesome to have a guy like that and put up those numbers. Look at his numbers from every other year. His year at Akron, his years at Duquesne. They were good. They were not great. He probably had great games sprinkled in, but he was a 10 points a game guy. That's fine. 3-4 assists, whatever it was. Shot, high 30% from three. Good stuff. Comes to a mid-major program like FGCU and explodes. Has the greenest of green lights on offense that I've ever seen around the program. And you didn't even care about that, right? Like you wanted him to have that green light. It wasn't like, man, he needs to shoot less. Sometimes like those few games this year when he was off, you were like, all right, let's, help the team in other ways besides shooting because it's not working. But then he'd go rack up 10 assists, right? We know how dynamic he was this year. And my point in talking about this right now is that I think TDM is a great example out there for other guys in programs. Maybe not all the way until you only have 1 year left, but maybe you've played 2 years and you can say, you know what, like maybe I should go down to FGCU and really show how good of a player I can be. I'm not a 10 points a game guy. I'm not an 8 points a game guy. I can go down there and help a team dominate and show how good I am, not be, third fiddle on a team. I can be number one, and let me show you that. And I think Tavion Dunn-Martin would have been a really good recruiting pitch, selling point for guys for Michael Fly, in years to come, next year and this year looking for transfers. And now a new coaching staff doesn't have that cachet because they're not the ones who did it. Yes, they can still use the narrative. Like they can still say, yeah, we get, other guys from, bigger mid-major programs and high majors, and they can come in and that you can dominate this year. It'd be awesome. Yeah, you can use that, but you didn't do it, So we'll see how that affects things.
That's very true. 100% agree. That's another silver lining to, what was a season that fell short, what was a season that we lost our coach. There's all these still positives that are rolling in behind the scenes that still help the program. Like I said, like just by us succeeding back in 2013, we've been like, it's kind of like a passive, it's kind of like a passive income almost. It's like you're still helping the program grow on a trajectory that, may be slower this year, maybe a down dip this year, but it's going to skyrocket next year in the years to come. And there's still a lot of positives you could take from the season, a lot of records broken. So it is what it is. And we'll see how the staff and administration, what plan they have and where it goes, and just hope that it's a good plan.
Yeah, I'm, dare I say, optimistic. No, there's nothing to be optimistic about yet. Because there's no news except for that we're coachless. So I'm looking forward to being optimistic once things are found out. Another thing, I need to go back and look, but I don't remember coaching searches taking a very long time in the past. The Fly coaching search took no time because they knew what they were going to do. So that's not even really a factor. But going from Dooley to Enfield, I don't remember that taking a super long time. I remember, hoping and praying that Enfield stayed for some dumb reason. He would never do that. But after finding out he was going to leave, I feel like it was inside of a week that somebody was hired. Maybe I'm wrong and I'll have to look that up. But regardless, my point in saying that is that, things will move along as they move along, and we'll be here to have fun and report those things.
Yep. As soon as we get some more information, or maybe even prior to getting more information, we'll do some speculation or some deep dives. We'll get some news of some player news, staff news. It's all to be come in the next few weeks, probably.
Yep.
Right. We want to sign off
before we break it off. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it is an interesting situation in the ASUN championship this year. Like, one, thank God Liberty got knocked off. They don't deserve a fourth championship.
Well, they don't deserve it because they didn't win, but you it's nice that they didn't run it the whole time they're in it. Yeah.
This is a fan talking right now. I was biased. Like, thank God they didn't win a fourth one. Of course, they deserve it. They have a stellar team. And that was a hell of a game between Bellarmine and Liberty. But now the situation's even weirder with Bellarmine in the finals, and also Jacksonville beating Jacksonville State to go to the finals. So now I think the rule is that the regular season champs, aka Jacksonville State, who already lost, if Bellarmine wins, they would still go to the tournament, and Bellarmine just wins ASUN bragging rights, and I think goes to the NIT. I think they can go to the NIT.
Yeah, I just really, really want to talk to someone about how stupid that is. Like, why is there any transition year? Like, if you're good enough to win your damn tournament, go to the tournament. Like it's so stupid.
So actually, Ted Gumbart, the ASUN commissioner, posted a flurry of tweets that maybe we should retweet. I actually like them, but he's all for the no timeline of transitioning, or at least maybe reducing it to 2 years, because there is some validity to it where they don't want just a your number one successful D2 team, kind of like Bellarmine, to just come in and then ransack the league, which I agree and don't agree with, but I think there's like financial stuff they got to get in order, obviously paperwork crap of sorts. There's all kinds of I think licensing and stuff that takes time. There's a whole little dissertation on it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't care to read all of it, but I get it.
Yeah, it's not very much, and it sucks for Bellarmine. I don't know what their student athlete. I mean, they're probably focused on just winning the ASUN title, as they should be, but all the fans and supporters of Bellarmine are like, well, what does this mean? We get an ASUN bragging rights, but we can't go play in March with the rest of the good teams. So yeah, it's a weird.
Well, here's my argument to that. So if that's a problem, like you don't want D2 teams coming in real quick, like the best versions of them and beating the worst, D1 conferences, then how about don't let them play in the conference tournament at all, so you can avoid that. Your bragging rights are in the regular season, done. But why entertain this fake idea that you can go to the tournament when you can't?
No, that's a good point too. But then it's both sides. Then, and what's fair is like, oh, you guys can't compete for this, even though you're in the league. So why do you even play?
Well, it's more fair than showing how stupid a conference can be. if a new person like that who's not even eligible runs it, and they pick a regular season winner, what was the whole tournament for then?
North Alabama was in the finals last year, right? And they lost to Liberty. If they won, I think Liberty still would have went.
Yeah, because they won the regular season as well. And that's another thing.
I agree with you that from a nationally televised standpoint that everyone's watching, they're like, oh shit, this determines who goes to the tournament. In that case, it wouldn't. And in this case, again, it doesn't. And it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and honestly, I just hope that Jacksonville wins at this point. That turnaround is amazing. They haven't been to the tournament in a long time. And also, I haven't, as a fan, again, speaking with all this bias, I haven't hated a Jacksonville team since, Corey Babineau. Those days, 5+ years ago or whatever, because it was just annoying playing against them. But at this point, I have, no ill will to a Jacksonville team. So the fact that you haven't been there in forever, the fact that you knocked off the number one, team in the conference in the regular season to get here, you should go to the tournament at this point. So just beat Bellarmine. So there's no question about that at all, because
like you said, I wish whoever wins this game on Tuesday, just goes to the tournament, but
but here we are.
But either way, that's about everything I got.
Yeah, that's going to wrap it up here. We will, I'd actually like to have maybe one of these graduating seniors on the pod at some point in the next, month plus, just to wrap up their season, their feelings, their plans moving forward, maybe a little bit initial reaction to, the Fly situation, and if a new coach is announced, kind of if they know anything about them, etc. But regardless, for this pod, that's going to be it. Can't wait to figure out all this information we've been speculating about. But yeah.
Here's to better times.
Yes, sir. Go Eagles.